Now, you also talk, though, about the system of the way we appoint judges in Canada as political appointments. And so if we had a judge sitting alone, and then we look at your view of the political appointments, perhaps being there for reasons less than who would be the best judge, maybe who has been most politically useful to a particular political party is the person who gets the appointment. Do you still think that a judge sitting coupled with an accused being required to give a background statement regarding the event, do you still see that as being a better way?
I still do. Fortunately, in our system, although I don't like the appointment system, there is a tradition that once a person is appointed, that he becomes very independent and tries to act as professional as he can. And I think most appointees fall into that mold. And I think most of them really try to do a good job. That really helps. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I would prefer another system there, although there are problems with other systems where you have professionally trained judges. From the time of graduation from law school, they work into a judicial stream. But it's hard to isolate just one segment of a system. For example, the civil law system has also the approach of professionally trained investigating magistrates who are lawyers, who have the right to interview the accused person. And I think that kind of system is far more likely to get to the truth of a matter than is our system, where we sort of work by a trial by ambush type of situation. And in my view, gives rise to all kinds of difficulties. And certainly in the civil area, ignoring for the moment criminal law, the civil law process, now in the sense in Canada of dealing with civil matters as opposed to criminal matters, has become so expensive that the ordinary person cannot deal with it any longer, and they are resorting to arbitration and all kinds of things. It's interesting to me that as well many judges are very, very concerned about this because they see what is happening in their courts, and I've listened to recent speeches by judges who are saying that we have to do something. A very poor person may get legal aid. A wealthy person or a corporation or a union has enough financial background to weather the system, but the person of average means can just be beat entirely by the system and has no way to effectively cope. And when you have roughly the average person in a position where the law is financially out of reach, I think you have a serious problem in society, and I think we have to do something about it.
How do we do something about that, Doug? I think many people would agree with you, having whoever has come into interaction, even like civilly with the legal system, whether they be a corporation or a person. It's very, very onerous financially. Sometimes it just makes people settle things when they probably shouldn't. Who do we talk to? I mean, you're someone who knows your way around the legal system, the judicial system. Who are the people to go to, the legislators?
Well, a combination of things. I think there has to be a public awareness of what is happening, first of all. Obviously, we have to go to legislators. If I can draw a comparison with medicine, many of the medical costs that would be involved in treating someone are borne by society rather than by the doctor in his office. And I think perhaps we have to do more of that as well. I think part of the problem, again, is caused by the fact that we concentrate on criminal law when we talk about legal assistance. And many people don't like that because they see the money going for a purpose or a cause which in their view, does not benefit society. They may be wrong, but that's a standard reaction, and I think it's an understandable reaction. I think we have to help people with legal issues, not just with respect to criminal law, but with respect to civil law as well. How we do it, I'm not so sure, but I think you have to start with understanding what the nature of the problem is and then look for solutions. It's going to require a lot of thought and a lot of effort, and in my view, a substantial amount of money to deal with this problem. But I think we have to, or the law is going to fall into great disrepute. And I think that would really be unfortunate.
Doug, I want to turn back to the book for a minute and ask you one final question. You make a lot of commentary here about, in the background of your fiction, about what it's like to be a professor or to work in the environment, because your main character, Jeff, references many times what his professor told him, what his criminal law professor told him. Obviously, when you're writing that, you're reflecting on your own experiences as a criminal law professor and a constitutional law professor, I might add, as well. You talk a lot about various professors and their characters. Just loosely describe them. I was totally amused because it was almost like I knew who you were talking about when I read it. You talk about a lot of things that go on behind the scenes in the college of in a college of law, in any college of law probably. How did your colleagues take that when they read it?
They've been too kind to comment on it. I would be surprised if some of them did not take a little bit of exception to it, because there's an element of truth in all of the comments, in the things that I've observed in a university setting. There are also some comments which on occasion are critical about how universities operate. I think that universities have lost their independence to large companies who are now funding much of the research around a university. And I think we're into a rather dangerous period where, when one looks at what is happening in drug research, in the whole biotech industry, if you look at the campus, even of the University of Saskatchewan, you find that so much of it is funded by outside companies, and I can't really believe that that does not have an effect on their work, because if they want to be critical of what a particular company is doing, or even on the social and economic implications of that work, if they state that publicly, their funding will be dried up, and they may even be subject to criticism by the university. I think a good example of that is Dr. Nancy Oliveri at the University of Toronto, who ran into all kinds of difficulty because she thought that some drugs were in fact dangerous to human health, and the university did not want her to say that. And that, I think, is really most unfortunate. That's certainly not the tradition of the University of Saskatchewan in the early days, when universities did an enormous amount to help the agricultural community to get over problems of rust in wheat, which were destroying the crops. Now I think it's shifted the other way, and I think now many university researchers are helping the chemical companies and are helping themselves personally, financially, than they are by helping the general public. And I think that's cause for concern.
And I know, Doug, you touch on that in the book as well when you talk about environmental issues that do concern the oil industry and also agriculture. And I know there was a little of your own family's experience that went into this book too. It's a many dimensioned book for sure. It's a great read for people who just simply want to read a fiction that has all different components, and at the end all the loose ends get tied together, and I'm not going to say what that is. You'll have to read it first. And it's also a great read for people who do have a love of the law and want to see the law progress in a positive direction and get the commentary of someone who has a lot of expertise in various areas. I want to thank you so much for being here today.
You're most welcome.